that accompanied a plague as it swept through 1940s in Algeria. Further, it presents a snapshot of life in Oran as seen through Camus' distinctive absurdist point of view. The novel depicts that in April, for no discernible reason, thousands of rats stagger into the open and die in a horrific way, jerking and spinning and spurting blood. When a mild hysteria grips the population, the newspapers, like today's TV channels, social media handlers, and newspapers, begin clamoring for action. The town authorities collection and cremation of the dead rats. The town doctor, Dr. Bernard Rux, is very worried about the way the rats die. Rux sends his wife, who has been invalid for years, out of town to be treated, and his mother arrives to help him around the house. The rats stop dying, probably because they are all dead, and people begin to get ill. The townspeople start to panic. Raymond Rambert, a reporter, arrives in town looking for a story, like our present-day TV channel and cameramen go to various corona-affected people and places to get very latest and fresh corona disease stories. Rambert's arrival almost coincides with a wealthy tourist, namely Jean Tarot. Through Tarot's diary, we get glimpses of frightening and fearful life in Oran and information about the plague. It quickly becomes evident that the plague that has hit the town is that swept Europe in the Middle Ages, but the people in charge refused to accept it. As a result of the deadly plague in Oran, many people continued to die, as is happening today due to COVID-19 or corona in many parts of the world and many states of India. Dr. Rux and other doctors in the town begged the authorities to take action. But what the authorities do instead is quarantine the town, that is cutting it off from the rest of the world. As we all know, quarantine is also a buzzword during corona pandemic in the present times in our country as well as in the world. The larger form of quarantine is lockdown of today, in which human beings are cut off from the rest of the world. Public vehicles, trains, air traffic are all suspended as a part Oran tries to kill himself. At quarantine, people begin to go crazy in Oran. Many die, as is happening in the present times, haunted by corona. A townsman in Oran, namely Cotard, tries to kill himself, but is rescued by his neighbor, namely Grand, who is a friend of Dr. Rux. Even in corona times of today, due to fear of the deadly corona, some people have already committed or attempted suicides in our country. Both Cotard and Grand are acting strangely. Cotard is very nervous around policemen, and Grand despite almost complete inability to find right words, is trying to write a book and a letter to his ex-wife. The reporter, Mr. Rambert, is trapped in town under quarantine, as has happened to many people in our country during the present day lockdown. These people are trapped in our country and abroad in places which are far, far away from their homes, and who were transported to their places by central and state governments through buses, aeroplanes, and even ships. So Rambert tries multiple times to leave and get back to his love in Paris, but each time he is stopped. This is exactly what was being done and is still being done to thousands and lakhs of people in our country during Corona lockdown, who wanted to go to their kith and kin who were far, far away from them. Sometimes these people who wanted to go to their kith and kin walked distances of hundreds of kilometers. In the process, many of them lost their lives also due to exertion, hunger, thirst, or even accidents. The local priest in the plague, namely Father Panelox, tells the townspeople that the plague is for sinning. This is exactly similar to what is being said by some people in Corona times of today, that Corona pandemic is a kind of revenge taken by nature over human beings for the sins or misdeeds or selfish acts of human beings who have been cruel towards nature in the form of this, reflected in indiscriminate cutting and burning of trees, jungles, emission of dangerous gases which have damaged normal form of air and water, etc. The human beings have been cruel to animal world. Are completely extinct from the face of this earth, and some of them are highly endangered. And all this is due to selfishness of human beings and due to human beings' complex that he is superior to all other animals on this planet. The human beings have been greatly corrupt, cruel, and dishonest in their relations and behavior with other human beings also, which is evident in sufferings, tortures, deceptions, and even killings imposed and inflicted by the so-called advanced, clever, and powerful human beings over the so-called backward, ignorant, and weak and poor human beings and human races. All these are sins of human beings towards nature, towards animal world, and towards their fellow human beings. Damage to nature by human beings is done almost for 24 hours of the day in many forms. Their fellow human beings is reflected in the killing of George Floyd on the road in the broad daylight by Minneapolis police in America. There have been millions of such cases enacted by selfish and villainous kinds of human beings in the past, and there would be millions of such cases in the future also enacted by human beings whose minds and hearts are full of cruelty, selfishness, sensitivity, and inhumanity, etc. In the plague, the death toll passes 700 people a week, which is very less compared to the present day death toll due to corona in many countries where thousands of people are dying every day. In the plague, many people barricade themselves in their homes, which is similar to corona affected times of today, wherein people follow and are made to follow the dictum of stay home, stay safe. The character Taro in the plague, who is a tourist stuck in Oran town, Ryuks's help in finding volunteers to fight the plague. Grant, who has made no progress on his book, is one of the helpers. Rambert and Cotard sneak out of Oran. This is similar to running away by some of the quarantined or hospitalized corona patients from quarantine centers and hospitals. Asks Cotard and Rambert to help them battle the illness, but Cotard retorts that he hopes the plague never ends. He is making money in the black market. Now, Cotard resorting to black marketing is similar to the behavior of the production and sale of items like PPE kits, masks, sanitizers, and similar other items which are useful in getting relief and protection from corona disease. Rambert, however, agrees to help, though he is still planning to escape. Martial law is declared due to deteriorating conditions in the plague in Oran town. Now, this imposition of martial law in Oran is again similar to deploying CRPF forces in Mumbai, and also a demand made to deploy similar military forces in some of the cities of our country. The cemeteries are full of dead bodies. In Oran, the cemeteries are full of dead bodies, and this is again similar to corona, wherein thousands of people are dying every day and cemeteries are full of dead bodies. And countries are countries such as America, England, Italy, France, Brazil, etc. All the hotels and large buildings in Oran have been turned into hospitals. And we know that a very respected industrialist in India, like Mr. Ratan Tata has given run by Tata Group for temporarily converting it into a center for treating corona patients. Moreover, a number of private hospitals, schools, and playgrounds are also currently being converted into corona hospitals. In the story continues.
Audio is it? Hello? Is any problem? Hmm? Okay. Stop करायचं का? आहे तयार. You come on. Hmm?
डॉक्टर मदन सर ऐकायला येते माझं? वरचं पाणी घेऊ दे. ऐकायला येते? डॉक्टर मदन सर ऐकायला येते?
Yes, 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 yes. Yes,
Shall I
yes,
continue?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Another doctor in the town makes a serum, but it does not help the son of the police magistrate, young Attal, and the young boy dies. This is again similar to many people claiming that they have invented corona vaccine, but none of it has proved to be useful against corona so far. The confidence or morale or faith of the townspeople declines or falls very sharply. Father Penelox, who is a religious authority, admits that his faith is shaken after watching the child die. Not much later, Father Penelox also dies, though the cause of his death is a mystery. Father Penelox's death shows that when it comes to diseases that adversely affect human beings, religion is hardly of any use. Only science, and that too medical science, can help humanity in such a calamity. We saw that in India during corona times and during lockdown period in India, almost all places of religious worship or prayers such as temples, mosques, churches were closed down, and the only people active all the time were doctors, nurses, paramedical staff, cleaning staff, the police, and similar others. Religion hardly proved to be of any use in corona times, as it happened in the 1940s plague, as depicted by Camus in his novel The Plague. No religious authority or astrologer could predict the outbreak of corona before it actually started. Now, some of the major themes of this novel, The Plague, are as follows. The first of these is absurdism. The Plague, that is the novel Plague, is essentially a philosophical novel, meaning that it forwards a particular worldview through its plot and characterization. Camus is often considered an existentialist, but the philosophy he was mostly identified with and developed was called absurdism. At its most basic, this philosophy holds that the universe is absurd and meaningless. That is, there is no God or cosmic order, and that humans are doomed to suffer and die. Because of this situation, human beings have three options as far as Camus' thinking goes. Because of this situation, human beings, as far as Camus' thinking goes, have three options in life, and they are: number one, to commit suicide, or to make a leap, or to make a leap, leap of faith, or to make a leap of faith and choose to believe in a divine order or entity. And the third is to accept the absurd and create one's own meaning in life. Camus recommended the third choice as the first option, that is suicide, is a kind of cowardice, and the second, that is faith, is a psychological lie that Camus even compared to suicide. In The Plague, the besieged town becomes a microcosm of the universe, and the different characters illustrate different ways through which human beings deal with That is, the plague, Cotard first tries to commit suicide, which is another kind of plague, and then works with the pandemic situation. Father Penelux tries to assign order to plague as a punishment from God, but when he is faced with the true nature of the absurd through watching a child die, Penelux loses his faith and succumbs to disease himself. The protagonists of the novel, Rioux, Rambert, and Thoreau, live and struggle in the way that Camus advocates. They recognize the absurd, that is the power of the plague and their own inevitable doom, but still work ceaselessly against the plague, finding meaning in healing others. The next theme is suffering and death. The rest as corollaries to Camus' philosophy. In the novel, the bubonic plague is a symbol of number of things, such as the harsh, meaningless universe, the human condition, or war. But all of these meanings mean suffering and death. The people of Oran deal with this meaningless suffering in many ways. At first, they try to ignore or downplay it, and then they see it as a personal antagonist separating them. Suffering is paramount in the plague. We watch how characters react to, cope with, and learn from hardships. The last element, that is hardship, is particularly important. One character goes so far as to cite suffering as his greatest teacher. So, what do we learn exactly besides the helpful tidbit that we should always have anti-plague serum lying around? What we learn is the world is indifferent to the ceaseless and irrational suffering of man. The solution presented by the plague, that is the novel, is that even knowing that it is a losing battle, we must fight against suffering and fight it for the sake of mankind. The next theme is the theme of mortality. When a town, that is Oran, on the corner of the Mediterranean is stricken with an outbreak of the plague, death is a main concern. Everyone is forced to live as though life may be snatched from them at any moment. And this is similar to what is being felt by us today in the time that corona may hit us anytime and our life may be snatched away from us. Now the plague makes the point that really this is terribly different from normal life. After all, we could call all that everybody dies at some moment or the other. The difference, if we live as though a roof tile may fall on our heads at any moment, we will no longer play passive victim to suffering and death. We'll live while we can until we die. So continue to live even in the pandemic is the keyword that Camus gives us. Another theme is the theme of freedom and confinement. As we know, the plague tells the story of a town in quarantine due to an outbreak of plague. Issues of confinement and exile are hugely important to the tale. But what does it mean to be trapped or exiled or confined? This novel reveals that the town in question isn't really much more confined with its gates closed than it was when the people were free to come and go. Confinement comes in many forms, the least of which is geographical. Confinement spans from emotional to spiritual, mental dimensions. Freedom, it seems, is a state of mind more than a physical condition. So there is an element of existentialism also. So existentialism is one more theme in the novel. And that theme can be talked of as follows. The plague is considered, the plague that is disease, is considered an existentialist, uh, the plague that is novel is considered an existentialist classic, although Camus objected to this label. It is an existentialist novel in the sense that it stresses the powerlessness of individual characters to affect their destinies, which is the core or essence of absurdism. Duty is also one more theme of the novel. Much like love, duty is tricky in the novel Plague, especially when you run into the notion of conflicting or competing obligations. Which is higher, the duty to the state or the narrative, duty to the individual suffering or to the good of society as a whole? Characters in the novel Plague deal with emotional, legal, moral, ethical, and religious duty. To love, to peoples, to an occupation, etc., are also conflicting issues. In addition, the novel also presents a series of interesting points. It also presents the distinction between common decency and heroism. The novel argues that to put oneself at risk for the greater good does not deserve medals or fanfare. Because it is a simple case of man doing his job as a man, which is an essential element of humanism in a creature who calls himself human. Now, what is the message of the story? The message that we can talk about is as follows. Many consider this novel to be a war allegory of the French resistance to the Nazis in World War II, pointing out the futility of human aspiration and the inevitability of suffering. Now, I'm heading towards the conclusion of my presentation. Now, from the above discussion on the plague and its connections with the present day corona, what we can conclude is that no matter what age we live in and how much progress or advancement we make in science and technology, some of the basic tendencies of human beings remain the same, and that people react more or less in the same way when they are faced with the possibility of loss of their life or existence on this planet. This, I think, was one of the messages or conclusions that we could draw from a study of the plague, which is also a conclusion that we can draw from the existence of corona in our times around us, in our country and in the world. So, friends, on this note, I call it a day. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Sir has thrown light upon the novel Plague by Camus, and the novel tells the philosophy that suffer and die the situation in plague and even equal to coronavirus disease 19. Now the second session is going to begin. Good morning once again, all of you. The well-known resource person, Dr. Ek Prasad Dwivedi from Kathmandu University, Kathmandu, Nepal, is a research guide and taught linguistic courses. He has designed many English courses, published many papers in national and international conferences, journals, books, periodicals, and translated many official documents from Nepali to English and vice versa. He is also felicitated as a faculty member of the subject committee. He taught how to prepare proposals, reports, and research paper. He has also expanded student research project and publications. And today he is going to deliver his thoughts on effective teaching and learning amid pandemic. May I request to Dr. Ek Prasad Duvedi to deliver his guidance. Hello,
Thank you
Doctor.
very much, Professor Vijay Kumar. Warm greetings from Kathmandu. Could you enable me to share the screen? Professor Vijay Kumar. Hello.
Yes, yeah.
I want to share my screen. I have some PowerPoints. Is that possible?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Now I can't. It's disabled.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
You can share your screen. Yes. Share correct. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Is it shared, sir? Yeah. Can you view a PowerPoint?
PowerPoint facility.
A PowerPoint slide is being shown.
No, sir. No, sir.
It's being loading, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I've gone to the this presentation mode.
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
No, sir.
It doesn't?
Yeah, you are not going to share your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Now, sir, I've exited the full form. Zoomed out.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Please wait. Then. So this. Well, I think now I'm into.
Not sharing, sir. Not yet.
Still not?
Yeah. It's going to start now. Okay. It's going to start now.
All right. Thanks so much. So,
Right. Okay.
Honorable Principal Madam, distinguished resource persons, respected ladies and gentlemen, please accept my warmest greetings from Kathmandu, Nepal. And thank you, Professor Vijay Kumar, sir, for such a lovely introduction. And I would also like to thank you all for your precious presence for today. And my topic for today is effective teaching and learning amidst pandemic. Whatever subject we teach, but we are teachers after all. That's why this teaching and learning is very important, I think. So in this presentation, I'll share about 9 to 10 tips. Okay. So this is the time we had experienced never before, and maybe will experience never again in our lifetime. So students are in trauma, teachers are in trauma. Um, I have heard the news about Maharashtra also. It has become the epicenter of India, and so much worried about you. This presentation might, little bit sympathize or solace, give you solace. Uh, so first of all, survey students about tools and platforms. Co-construct your class, favor asynchronous approaches,
presentation mode
go low-tech and mobile-friendly, lower your expectations, share your story, offer support and resources, then create opportunities for students. Also think about the differently able students. And
Sir,
finally,
just a minute.
assign self-care and
Sir,
model.
just a minute.
Yes.
Please press F5. F5.
Okay.
Go in presentation mode.
All right, sir. So
Right. Okay.
is it okay? So these are the highlights of my presentation. I'm going to elaborate each point now. First of all, survey students about tools and platforms. Find out which technologies they have access to and comfortable using. Some of them are familiar with Zoom. Some of them are familiar with only Messenger or WhatsApp or just Google Meets or Microsoft Teams, whatever the platform. Students are familiar to. Students don't have problem to use. So just survey that. Then understand students' opinions. So this is difficult time. I mean, unlike the traditional classrooms, it shouldn't be like one-way traffic. It should be like two-way traffic. So uh, take their opinions. Be frank while trying a new technology that you are not sure it will work. Even if you are using newer technologies, be frank, right? Don't boast or brag, but be frank of your limitation. And connect to students and cultivate a sense of community. So let them feel that they are not robots, right? They are human beings. So try to create some connectivity. And my next tip is co-construct your class. Means students are also stakeholders. That's why involve them. Give students some control over their learning. It can help combat feelings of helplessness in the current circumstances. So it will enable them to be in the system, to share the power actually, and be collective in making decisions about deadlines for outstanding assignments. Unlike in the face-to-face class, you may not be very rigid about setting deadlines. And favor asynchronous approaches, not synchronous. Asynchronous means different timetables or routines, but most of the universities and colleges have been uh, following the same routines, like 9 to 4, for example. However, all students might not have free time during that period because they have to perform different duties. They might have to take care of their elders or younger siblings, or they might have to arrange this Wi-Fi facility. So try to change the routine and make it more flexible. Find ways to accommodate students who can't join at the given hour. Means try to facilitate those. You can set different time zone for them, different time duration for them. Record your lecture so that you can listen it later, and you can share it to those students who missed the online class, a direct class or live class. Share their responses with the class the next time you met. And when they send you the reflections during off hour, you can share those with the class next time. Keep students feeling like a class rather than scattered individuals, as I emphasize in the beginning slide also. Then go low tech and mobile friendly. If possible, try to facilitate them via radio and TV also. I mean, there's digital divide, and maybe Maharashtra is no exception, though this is the most prosperous state in India. I think still there can be many communities who don't access powerful signals of Wi-Fi. Be sensitive to students with limited data plans or weak Wi-Fi. Choose open textbooks that enables downloads. Similarly, consider what it would be like to complete it on a mobile phone. So as far as possible, try to give the tasks that can be done with mobile applications. Think about the student data privacy considerations of any products you are signing up for. And what's about the radio and TV, the alternative of online education? And lower your expectations. Be flexible with deadlines. Offer alternatives if someone can't complete a particular assignment. Don't assign high-stake tests on a new platform. Be sensitive to the additional responsibilities students may be expected to assume, like taking care of younger sibling. I think I'm not explaining this because I've covered it in the previous slides. Decide what students really need to know and prioritize that. So only what they need to know. Don't demand perfection of yourself. So this is a new time. We are learning also. Moreover, we are English teachers. We might be poor in IT. However, because of the demand of the time, we have to exploit this opportunity. So we also need to update. So never hesitate for doing that. Take this disruption as a learning opportunity. So if we take this as opportunity, then only we can learn, or then only it can be very, very fruitful. It suddenly started raining heavily here. I don't know whether the sound disturbs you or not. Share your story. Tell students how your life has been disrupted by coronavirus. I mean, you are also human being. I mean, there can be a lot of problems because of this pandemic in your life also. So try to share that, And my experience is that when you start sharing it, they will also come up and share up their stories. And this way we can create a sense of togetherness and a community. Treat the first online meeting as a registration only, because on the first day you can't do many things. That's why don't introduce jargons or very difficult lecture or difficult work, difficult fiction or difficult or complex poetry on the very first day. So start with very simple one. Know your limitation. You are not automations that are able to spew data and facts regardless of the circumstances. And everyone has a story to tell. So be a human being rather than a perfectionist. As far as possible, offer support and resources. Many of your students are dealing with depression and anxiety right now. So this is the case of Nepal, though the mortality rate is not so high. But the case of Brazil or Italy or USA could be far different. Let students know you are there for them, even if you can't meet in person, can provide a huge comfort. Make them believe that you are a safe person to talk to. Though you are not a counselor, still, if you are sympathetic to them, uh, then they can trust you and share their problems. Share the resources, e-books and many e-resources. If possible, food and accommodation also, if the students reside near to you. Give them clear, concise, and reliable information. Create opportunities for students to process the moment. Try to link not only your stories, but also the books that is related to this pandemic. As the previous resource person shared, Albert Camus' play. So you can share similar texts which can be more interesting and relevant in this pandemic. Share John Steinbeck's Canary Row, which features an influenza epidemic like coronavirus. Similarly, recently I have read Dean Koon's The Eyes of Darkness and Sylvia Brownie's End of Days. These are the masterpieces. You will be amazed. I mean, these writers predicted about such virus decades back. Encourage students talking about how that fictional outbreak compared to the current one. Play and give a case with recorded video prompt and ask students to record their responses. So with video prompts also, you can engage students to reveal their stories. Approaching the pandemic this way, looking at its context and legacy, gives them a bit of distance to reflect. So this will definitely encourage them to reflect their own sufferings, their own experiences. And don't forget about students with different abilities. I should not say disabilities, that's not friendly, not very inclusive language. So with the shift of online learning, some students will require different accommodations than they had in the face-to-face class. I mean, for example, blind students or students having hearing problem might have might have to face different challenges while taking online classes. So plan about those students too. Start captioning the videos. This is one of the solutions. Make sure that any material you post online is an accessible format for a screen reader. So try to think about differently able students too. And assign self-care and moderate. And this is difficult time, most stressful time in the history. So start a lecture with a mindful moment. Share a meditation exercise with your students. I know India is very much famous for this meditation and yoga exercises. So you have that asset, valuable assets. So you can utilize those with your students also. Make them do one thing a week to prioritize themselves and report back what it was, and take care of yourself. You also matter, right? So if you are strong, if you are healthy, then only you can help others. So please think about that. Take a break, take a walk, and practice self-compassion. And that will help you to become a better person, and that will enable you to understand their students from their level. So my conclusions, try to be more inclusive in online class. Uh, then while you can attract the students, otherwise you will also fail the students. Most of the students, like elite colleges, elite universities of USA do, right? Uh, because of their tight schedules and many rigorous deadlines, most of the students, mainly poor and working, fail to attend the classes and pass the exams. So that is the case of the USA, and our countries are more horrible. I mean, the condition is more horrible. Survey students about tools and platforms. Co-construct your class. Don't favor synchronous approaches, but adopt asynchronous one. Go low-tech mobile technology, mobile-friendly technology, even radio, FM stations and TV stations can be exploited for this period. Share your story, offer support and resources, create opportunities for students. Don't forget about students with differently or different abilities. Assign self-care and model it. I hope this deadly natural disaster, the first time in my life, will come to an end soon. I believe this cannot last for indefinite time. We shall overcome it in near future. We learn from the nature that the world is the place to live in peace and with friendship to all beings. And we will meet very soon. Thank you very, very much for having me here. Wishing you a wonderful day. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer those. Thank you once again for having me here. Over to
Thank you very much.
Rajesh sir.
Okay. Then now we are turning towards our third session. I would like to invite Dr. Rohidas Nitonde, Associate Professor and IQAC Coordinator, Sri Shivaji College, Parbhani, Swami Ramananda Tirtha University, Nanded. He is the youngest scholar with citation and indexed, prepares study materials for MA English distance education, has online portal for continuous assessment CBCS, educational leadership by coordinating internal quality assurance cell for third cycle. He is institutional coordinator for UGC Paramarsh Mentor Institution. He is a research guide, published many papers in national and international journals, periodicals. Being as a resource person, delivered valuable speeches in seminars and conferences. He has published 2 books as a single author. He has also published conference proceedings. He has written 15 research papers and 6 research papers in conference proceedings. He is a recognized PG teacher. He is also brand ambassador of NPTEL, MHRD, IIT Madras. He has also received award from Bharatiya Shiksha Ratna, and now today he is going to deliver his lecture on the role of journalism in global pandemic. May I request Dr. Rohidas Nitonde, sir, please.
Hello, good morning to
Hello.
everybody. Hello, good morning, everybody. I hope I am audible. Thank you.
Yeah.
The honorable organizer of the event, the principal of RB Attal College, Georai, Dr. Rajni Sikre Madam, the host of this event, respected Bandil sir, uh, his colleagues in the department, Mr. Arun Zadhav, honorable resource persons who are addressing to this August gathering all over the globe, Professor Korde sir, Professor Duvedi sir, Dr. Ajay Deshmukh sir, and all the participants from across the globe who are with us in this meeting, as well as in the live streaming on YouTube of the same meeting. I take this as an opportunity to thank the organizers for extending their invitation to me to address this meeting. As you know, the topic of the day is media during the pandemic. Since you know, neither I had been a media person, nor do I have any experience in the field of journalism, and there is not a distant possibility that I may be connected with any assignments related to the healthcare or corona COVID facilitator. But still, I'm talking about this issue. That means my perspectives on this topic, they are not of a specialist views. Rather, what I thought and even the organizers felt is that it is the time for the common people to look at this urgent issue. And that's why during my presentation, the brief talk that I will be having with you, my focus is that how common man looks at the media during this unprecedented time in the history of mankind. So if you allow me, can I present my screen, sir? Professor Bandel, sir. Please allow me to share my screen so that I would be showing a few slides.
Yes.
I don't have many slides. I have only few slides, and I would love to talk about them. Okay, very good. I started with thank you.
Yeah, sir. Okay.
So at the outset, I must say thank you to the people, those who are going to listen me and view some of the slides that are there. There is, you will find that there is a slight difference between the brochure that the organizers have circulated amongst us and the topic that I have mentioned in my presentation. And now the topic is redefined as media in pandemic. All of us, we know that the whole world is in pandemic. And in that context, I would like to come to the conclusion. The tagline of this presentation, maybe it is not that we the people are facing the pandemic, but rather it is the time for media to be in pandemic, and how this global pandemic has affected the media and how it is badly affecting to serve its own original purpose. Let us see that all of us, we know that since the early November of last year, everybody knows that the COVID-19 or coronavirus 19, its first cases were found, and then in December it came into picture, particularly in the media, and from then also it took a couple of months for people, government, WHO, and media to make it a mass awareness movement. So in the initial position, the things that people they know today, had they come to know it perhaps 3 months before or immediately after the situation was getting worse, then maybe people, governments, the healthcare facilitators, and media would have been able to prepare themselves very well. So rather, my intention is that what I understood is that pandemic has affected people, governments. It raised questions about World Health Organization, and the present topic or many webinars and the global meets of experts, they are talking about whether the media is in pandemic. That means we are going through a very, very bad experience. People are suffering, there is no need to talk about. The governments are suffering, the oppositions, and even the some of the ministers and secretaries themselves, they are blaming each other. So in the crisis, who is in the crisis? Really, it is the people are there in the crisis, but the people are ultimately governed by the governments, and the governments, they are also in crisis. We know that never in the history of the World Health Organization it was blamed so horrifically that which is now being criticized. And what about the media? Media in democratic countries, which is considered as the fourth pillar of democracy, what about the media where there is no democracy? In certain countries where there is no freedom of media. So in this context, we have to remember John Milton's Areopagitica. Long back in history, there are events, there are situations where media could not enjoy its liberty to share what it knows to the people. And that is why media is also affected. There is a huge gap between what comes in the media and what it gives out. So casting and collecting, these two are not the synchronized activities of media. And I'm not talking only of the Indian media or some of the regional media. You can take examples of the media from all the countries, developed countries, developing countries, and underdeveloped countries also. Everywhere you will find that the situation is like this. The speed of spreading things is more or less. That is the only difference. But in these days, the crisis is there all over. People are worried. Many of them, they are scared. Most of them, as Dovedi sir was talking, most of them are under the depression. So people are bothered. The governments are intense. WHO is not firm, and media is unable to maintain the synchronization between what is coming in to them, the media houses, and what they are casting to the globe. Let us see how prepared were we to face the COVID-19 or any sort of pandemic. And the answer is, it is ill preparedness of the people, of the healthcare, health workers, warriors, media houses, journalists, technocrats, and communicators, and we, the people, we were not prepared. And obviously you will say that we did not know it. It is a sudden disaster, and that is why we were not prepared. But after this, do you think that we'll be preparing ourselves in the coming days if after a certain period there comes another pandemic? Do you think? And the answer is perhaps as usual, we'll think of it when it comes. And in this context, I am going to highlight these 8 points again. What about the preparedness? Because nobody thought that a situation like this will occur, and that's why everybody who is related to this pandemic is in chaotic and confused situation. We don't have, yeah, very good. Somebody is trying to do this, and for long days I was waiting to see the name of that person. Okay, so those who are annotating the screen, I request you to stop it, otherwise I will make it publicly your name display in the public gathered meeting, so that out of the 100 people, those who have joined us, who is that mischievous person. So my humble request to you, please don't do it, because you might be seeing that I have option to hide the names of annotators as well as disable participant annotation, but rather I would keep the option open. I'm not deliberately, I'm not disabling it. Okay. The thing is that preparedness, and everyone knows that we were ill prepared, health workers, COVID warriors, and unfortunately, you know that as healthcare and health workers, along with that, in many parts of the country and even all over the world, in addition to the healthcare staff, the people, government employees from different walks of life, they are also assigned the responsibility to be COVID warriors. And unfortunately, they were also not prepared. Many governments are not providing adequate facilities to these people, and they are being the prey of this pandemic. Unfortunately, we are losing our own people. Suraj said, we are only having 100 people in this meeting. Suraj said, stop doing this. So you know that the warriors, they are being the prey of this COVID virus, and some of them, they are dying. So the situation is out of control, and the reason is that when we are going through it and we don't know how to face it, in that, and we are compelled to face it, and that is the case with the media houses and journalists as well. We know that the doctors and healthcare workers, the police personnel, and then the journalists, they are larger in number of the people who are infected by this dangerous virus. So the reason is that media houses were not prepared how to train their people to go in the public, to go in the containment zones, how to behave there, how much distance they have to keep with the people. Earlier it was short distance. Now with the increased cases and the changed norms and protocols, the distance, social distance that is required to keep got increased, or now we are on 2 gaj ki duri. So earlier the correspondents that visited people, they were not having the long stick mics. Their microphones were short, and they just used to go close to the person to whom they were to interview. So there were lack of preparedness among the media houses, journalists. There was no training, and even in the last presentation, Dwivedi sir talked about how teachers of English, they have to handle their assignments during this COVID. But again, the problem is this: We were never taught, we were never trained how to tackle the situation, how to use the multimedia, digital media. In my introduction, Dr. Bandel sir told that I am associated with IIT Madras's master project, that is National Mission on Technology Enhanced Learning. So in many countries, the MOOCs and online learning is in practice for years together. Maybe in European countries for a decade or two. In Indian context, we have almost a decade of online learning. So those who were at the front, they were only exposed. Rest of the people, they are not exposed to this new kind of experience. And the same thing happened there in the media houses. Not every journalist was prepared to face this situation. And you know that many media houses, they had asked their people, the broadcasters asked their correspondents to present their reports from their homes, and the houses of the journalists turned into the tailor-made studios for broadcasting. Then the technology. As you know, how many of us were aware of these Zoom meetings 2 years back or a year back or just in October 19? Very few. But now everybody is using it. The technology houses are those who provided the communication technology. We are unable to connect people on a larger scale as it is required. We know that communication on a wider platform has become need of the masses, but masses are not getting access, only the classes are getting the access. We know that many people wanted to be part of this Zoom meet today, but we are having a limited intake, and some of the others who were interested, they are watching a live stream. That means we are not yet completely prepared to face this pandemic situation. And though the Western or developed European countries are having the higher generation of network providers like 6G, 7G, and 8G, in Indian context, even somebody who's sitting in Pune, he is having low bandwidth. So let us not think just of people living in Northeast and the interior parts of the country. So technology and technocrats also are not prepared, and the communicators, here I mean to bridge the gap between people and the specialists. Most of the time, we know that the role of media is to educate the people. It is not all the time that media is to entertain people. It is beyond that, and media is to educate. And for educating people regarding this pandemic, media was not prepared. Particularly the communication between media and the scientific fraternity, those who are working on COVID-19. The research that is going on, the researchers who are directly involved in the in working with COVID-19 and its ultimate solutions, they are not being properly communicated by the media to the masses, and therefore there is a lack of proper communication between what is going on inside the laboratories and what is there outside. Then we have, dear host, please would you mute all the participants? Respected Bandal sir, you have an option called mute all the participants. Otherwise, I will have to them.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So there is even in All India Radio, you will see that in many stations, people are there to see that we need to take our care, and we, the people, as such, the general public, the common people, we also need to prepare ourselves. What is our preparedness? And my perception as a common man is that we are prepared when there is a lockdown in our vicinity locality, when the government imposes the bans on our movement, then only we are stuck to our homes. Otherwise, as no sooner than the ban is lifted, then automatically people are coming up to the places where there are huge crowds. So we are not that way prepared. We are not prepared mentally to control our own behavior, our own staying at home and not coming out of the homes unless and until it is an emergency. That is what. And even if when we are going out, we taking all the necessary precautions, and the answers to these, I mean, I'm not talking about the 100 or some 1,000 people that are there in this meeting. I'm talking about the general people, public as such. And the answer is that no, negative answer is there. The media is covering many parts of the country and the globe where therein people, they have lost their own self control and self discipline. So that is also essential to deal with the pandemic. During the crisis of the pandemic, we all need to be prepared, and the preparedness of all together can only help all of us to overcome this pandemic situation. To be very specific, let us categorize media. And media can be categorized as broadcasting media, then we have print media, and the last one is cinema. So the presentation is giving you the common man's perspective, as I already said. The broadcasting media consists of TV, radio, and online streaming. And we all know that the average time of the people in front of the screen, particularly television screen, is 20% increase during the pandemic. This is the observation. All over the world, 20% time was increased of the people to sit in front of the television, and TV has suffered a lot. It is affected, though it is giving all the news related to the pandemic, maybe depending on the nature of the channel, whether it is a world news service or a regional service, depending on their field of choice, they are doing it. But in addition to that, they also face some problems like that. Their studios were locked down, and even many other things. I'm going to talk about it in the next slide, perhaps. Then TV, radio, and online. And the one interesting thing is that in online, you could see that maybe 6 months before, who never opened up his mouth to say anything to even his close friend, intimate. That person is now live on either FB or YouTube, and we are having thousands of people around us who are live. That is what online media has bloomed up all over the world in the pandemic days, whereas the traditional media suffered a lot. The next thing is print media, and on the large scale, print media is a traditional one. It is the printing newspapers and magazines. Many magazines have closed down in these months, and many newspapers, people, their subscribers have stopped subscriptions, and newspaper print media also got affected. Print media has its own utility, but still the media, the conventional media, particularly the small newspapers with limited circulation, they could not survive themselves during the pandemic. Though it was the need of that particular region, the regional newspapers, particularly addressing a particular small area, those newspapers and print devices, they were again in the crisis during the pandemic days. There were some journals, sorry, some newspapers, those they have already earlier adopted to the digital platforms. They are there still working with their efficiency, and they are having the uh, growth in their subscribers as well as their advertisements and commercial income as well. As I said that the more you are prepared, the more you are going to reap out of it. So the print media, the big media houses, those who were offering already their digital editions, as the teachers of English, we know that almost all the famous dailies, they were there, including the Hindu from India. They had their digital editions, and that's why they gained their readership as well as the circulation and the revenue in terms of that also. And for cinema, we all know that completely it is closed for 3 months. Nothing is happening there, and cinema is 100% locked down, and we don't know when is it going to reopen again. In near future, in a month or couple of months, there is no any sign that we may say that the cinema will come back to screen and people will be going to the theaters to watch the movies. That's a big question mark. So it is not that we are in a pandemic situation, but if you look at the media itself is in a pandemic. And when somebody someone who is himself struggling to survive own self, then how long and how efficiently that media will help the community, that's a big question mark. Even the global universities like Berkeley, they have already addressed this issue and organized events wherein the media experts were called in to explore the further possibilities of dealing with this topic. For online media, there are no new shoots, then the studios are closed down, staff is limited, facilities are resources are again they are limited, and once they are exhausted you cannot go beyond that. And then recasting the old stuff in Indian context, we know once again people are going back to Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the recorded uh, files. In All India Radio, we used to see that there used to be programs like from archives, but now for each and every radio station, there is no other way than broadcasting or recasting the old stuff that is there with them to some extent. For the news people only, they have limitations to recast the old stuff, but for the other TV channels, they have no other option, and that is why it has affected on the advertisements and their revenue generation. And on the one side, they are unable to perform well, and on the other side, they are not getting the fuel to burn the fire. The last thing is, most popular thing is to be live these days on the social media platforms, and most of the TV channels, they prefer to give you the live news in the times of the apps, particularly the Android apps or the iOS apps. It has become a popular trend to be online. Even this meeting is being live streamed. That's a symptom how this pandemic is all about being live. To sustain life, you have to be live. Then radio, press, and cinema. What happened to these things? Radio is earlier it was just a travel pastime, or some people those who were working in the distance places and commuting every day, they used to use radio for entertainment them. But now over these days, radio has gained more popularity, and there is a increase in the people, those who are going to the radio during the pandemic situation. For press media, already I said that the press media is there to address the direct needs of the local people pertaining to that particular locality. And for cinema, we don't know what is going to happen. As sir said, Dr. Bajrang Korde sir said that literature and other arts, they cater to the requirements, particularly the psychological requirements of the people, and they bring out people out of trauma. There is a old theory of catharsis, and we know that the art comes there to purgate people, and cinema is expected to do that. But right now, no cinema can come out with these limited resources, and we don't know when the cinemas will come out to take people out of this trauma of the global pandemic. I think I have tried my level best to give you a glimpse of a common man's perception on what is the pandemic and how the media is doing there. One important thing that I must show to share with you is that when the media is not prepared, then are there any symptoms, or are there any signs that media is undergoing for the preparation for future? And for that, UNESCO, United Nations Organization for Cultural Affairs, UNESCO has designed one MOOC, massive online open course, for the media people on how to tackle with pandemic and the future pandemics. So COVID-19 and future pandemics, and how to prepare themselves by the media houses and media people. So during last month, in May 19, UNESCO has run a course of 4 weeks, online course of 4 weeks, and some 2,500 broadcasters, or let us say media people, have been benefited by that course, and they are again training the other lot in their industry houses. And this is how media in the world has initiated the process of changing themselves, preparing themselves to deal with the unprecedented situations like pandemic COVID-19, or maybe any other thing that comes as a disaster in the future time. Once again, I thank all of you for your kind listening, the organizers as well. As already in the beginning, I humbly have submitted that I am not an authority in this subject, but this is what I felt as a common person looking at the situation that is there all over the world. Once again, thank you. If there are some questions, I will try my level best. Otherwise, there are the other experts, those who can again
Questions.
answer the questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sir has given very nice lecture on media. Now we are going to turn towards the last session, but not least session. And the well-known resource person is Dr. Ajay Deshmukh from Sri Muktanand College, Gangapur. Sir is also research guide, active spoke, MHRD, Swayam courses. Sir has started so many Swayam courses. Sir is a well-known discipline star in humanities and social science. He has a lot of contribution in professional enhancement of courses, IIT Madras, Kharagpur, and Roorkee. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. I express my gratitude to the organizing committee of this international webinar, Dr. Bandal sir, Dr. Shikri madam, Dr. Jadhav and all his colleagues, the experts on the panel, Honorable Dr. Bajrang Kode sir, my dear friend Dr. Rohidas Nitonde is there, and other dignitaries. For last 4 months, we have been living in the fear, in the shadow of fear. And this is an absolute threat to the human existence on the world level. As I'm given the job to express, share my views on pandemic and the role of mass media, it would be rather impossible to cover many aspects which are given here. But I would try my level best to express my observations and that how pandemic has been reflected in cinema and how it has been reflected in literature also. With the world, the references from world literature and somewhere Indian literature in present context. So, welcome. As we all are here to share our views, what I have restricted myself is to the sensibilities in times of crisis, the relevance of film and literature. This presentation would be following the pattern. It would go with the films first and then would deal with some aspects in literature also. So before beginning, let's have some glimpses into the photographs that we have witnessed in last 25 years. These are the milestone photographs and have shaken the existence of human belief. First photograph you can see is by a Pulitzer Prize winner, photographer Kevin Carter, and you can see that how a Sudanese child is suffering from hunger, and it is trying to reach the food camp where it can get food, and the vulture is waiting for its death. After receiving the Pulitzer Prize for this photo, Kevin Carter committed suicide after some months. The example here is of sheer lack of empathy, and that is why we need to empathize each other in such crisis. Because Kevin has failed in his duty to save the child, he focused instead on filming or photographing that incident. And this is quite pathetic. Means we have indifferent attitude towards others' pains. The next photograph you can see here is a small child, Alan Kurdi, a Syrian boy of Kurdish ethnic background. He was drowned in Mediterranean Sea on 2nd September 2015. As we know that ISIS crisis was there, and majority of people were trying to migrate from Syria to the European part of the world, and how these people have suffered during this migration, during this crisis. The photograph is evidence of the brutality that we all share in such critical situations. This is rather more pathetic because it brings you back to Indian context. You can see, and I am really very sad, and it is really painful to share this information that this happened in Aurangabad. Near about 14 people died who were sleeping on the railway track because they're traveling from their working places to their native places. And if you see these laborers, these migrants, because it was sheerly impossible for them to survive in lockdown, and the governmental agencies, the what we can say improper planning before declaring the lockdown, before sorting out these all issues. And if you see the media during these days, you will come to know that highways are full of people who are carrying their baggage and traveling for 1,000 miles from their places of working to their villages. So for the sake of bread and butter, these people have scattered across the globe, and how they are now returning to their native places. So this mass exodus, the migrants issues, if you go back into the history, you will come to know that how during the Holocaust, Jews were killed in Nazi camps. On the other hand, if you read the partition literature, if you witness the partition trauma, you can compare this exodus with that mass exodus that have carried from the Punjab part of Pakistan to Indian part of Punjab. So these are the brutal realities that have caused so many casualties, and these are the things which are recorded officially through media. There are many unsung stories, many unheard stories that are not shared. So you never know what is exactly the damage. This is the post that many of us have shared during lockdown, and how we have been hypocrites. We have been the part of double standard game of being civilized, being cultured, and how social media had been the great cause of trauma and pain to the people who were dependent on so many things. So this is an apt photograph that I failed to share with you. How people have not died of hunger, but they died of the issue that their self-respect, their self-honor would be destroyed during the showcasing of our so-called, philanthropy. Then I would like to go ahead with how mass media and films, and then how pandemic is being reflected in such films. If you see the films as a part of mass media, you'll come to know we all have a genre of films called as apocalyptic films, means the end of the world cinema, that can be called, where some kind of event or incident outbreak is predicted, and it predicts that how world will end soon. And you can remember in 2012 the movie named as 2012 was released, and how the panic was all over the world, and how people have been fighting the fears of their existence. And once again, the videos are in a fashion. Even last week, that Mayan calendar has committed a mistake, and it was a wrong prediction that the world will come to an end in 2012. Now they predict that the world will end tomorrow. That will be the 21st June 2020. So let's hope that we'll survive this fear also. Now, this apocalyptic cinema is a kind of a futuristic cinema that predicts events leading to the end of the world. Now, if you see them carefully, there's a pattern, and this pattern would be rather means we can recognize the events and how they follow each other. The most important thing here is sometimes these pandemics or the threats to the existence of the world is created or is the fruit of greed of human mind, and this is for money, some extent power, and at certain level extinction of weaker species. This can be used, the viral or bacterial infection can be used as a biological weapon to collapse the whole economy or destroying the world. And if you read these assumptions, if you read these basic underlying ideas in today's context, in COVID-19's context, the whole world has come to conclusion that COVID-19, the coronavirus, has been the human effort that is made into Chinese laboratories, and who has also played the part of culprit, who can be also the part of this conspiracy. And if you compare this, if you are the, what we can say, avid fan of Avengers series, how Thanos has been on the killing spree of this whole world, and he doesn't want that the weaker sections should leave. And in present context, we can apply this idea here also, how world is at the end of, or what we can say, it is entering into the gates of death. The weakers would be killed, and if you know that children and most of the people who are at the on the radar of this calamity are the old people, people who have no immunity power, who can't resist the changes occurring due to this COVID-19 virus. If you observe in the beginning, when lockdown was declared, there was a panic. It always happens when the threat comes at your gate, at your door. We get all of a sudden we are alert. We are extra cautious. When it happened in China, we have shared the videos, and we made fun of these all people also. When it happened in Europe, we also made fun of it. But the way migrants have been migrated to India, and it spread throughout Indian cities and all the corners of India, now we are realizing how we are at the gate of death. It is rather difficult to digest the situation, as I reside in Aurangabad, that is the third most dangerous city that can be called as a containment zone. And every day we have increased by hundreds. People are dying, and it is, it's very sad thing to share with you that one of our colleague from Shivaji College, Parbani, we lost him yesterday. He was working on coronavirus. I pray that his soul may reside in heaven. Due to insensitivity of system, due to lack of proper infrastructural facilities that the government should provide, he was victim to that. So there's a panic. Then there are certain levels of psychological problem. If you study psychology, we resist the awareness. We try to resist the change, and there are phases how we come to terms with this reality. And now we have accepted that yes, there is a threat to our life, and we are taking all kinds of cautions. So films related to pandemic have such kind of a growth or graph that is shared. Then brutality, we become brutal is at certain level, and then how inhuman we can be during when it comes to your own survival. At the same time, we are lost into the abyss of extreme pessimism, as we feel very helpless, that everything is beyond our control, and there's an existential problem that we share with each other. Then there is a threat to the life and existence of human beings. Human race all over the world is in threat, but this won't long for a long time. This won't, being human, we have to overcome, and at certain point, people, the leadership, the common man has to show the courage, and this is equally shown into the pandemic films. Courage, a hero and protagonist who rises to the situation. He shows courage, and then people have communal efforts to stop this outbreak. This is very important phase where we have to fight against such calamities, such pandemic situations. Then there is a dire need of emergency of medical solutions. And we have seen that how certain Ayurvedic, homeopathic, allopathic medicines practices have been there, and how media has started sharing the videos, giving people hopes of survival to cope up with this dilemma, the limbo situation. Inventions are being there, people are working over this, and it happens in films also. And the sheer struggle against this unknown enemy, you don't know who is your enemy, but hope and optimism survives you, and at last we overcome this outbreak. And in COVID-19 case, I hope that this will happen, we'll repeat this human power. uh, Coming back to the point, as I have shared my plan that we'll discuss or will inform some pandemic movies. And Hollywood is what we can say at avant-garde position. It has always been at the front to work on such out of the box ideas. And if you see on the screen, there are so many movies like Flu, The Last Days, 20 Days Later, Train to Busan, then 93 Days, Doomsday, Containment, Carrier, Contagion. This is the movie that all of have shared some clips, and it was impossible to see the whole movie in one sitting, especially during COVID-19 panic situations. Then Corona, that is in the making. Then Cargo. Then this Black Death goes back into the old England days. Then Outbreak is there. Then Containment. Then Pandemic. There are so many movies. If you see these movies, you'll come to know that how the outbreak of a viral infection catches the fancy of people, and how it spreads from a personal level to interpersonal level to community spread, that we have witnessed the weeks, first week, second week, third week, then community spread, and how it grows in a geometrical ratio. So these all movies have somewhere talked about the situations where people have collapsed, the way they have tried to cope up with these issues, especially if you see the Train to Busan. And many of these films, the living people are turned into the zombies. They became the carrier of that virus, and how they are cause of spreading this death, how they become the symbol of death itself. So these movies have somewhere tried to depict the enigma of survival, at the same time various aspects of human existence. Uh, Now coming to the pandemic and Indian cinema, these are some of the examples, and many of you have seen these films. So we can relate this in Indian context. If you see this virus that was made last year, I think, and it deals with the infection of Nipah virus in Kerala, and how people have fought against the Nipah virus, and how they overcome the issue of this problem. If you see the Krish, though it is piece of science fiction, but we imagine that there should be a superhero in our life too. But in actuality, there is no superhero. There is no God. All the doors and gates of gods were closed during pandemic and lockdown period. So we survived sheerly on the human hopes, on the belief of our own caliber, and somewhere balancing our own psychology. On the other hand, you have Dashavtaram. It also dealt with some spread of virus and how the hero tries to save the world here, India, from the spread of that virus. Azan, another wonderful movie in made in India. It has also the same issue where Azan is trying to unveil the plot where the conspiracy is to destroy the majority of population through the spread of virus, and how he fights against the enemies who are actually the enemy of whole humanity. One of the celebrated movie from southern part of India, Chennai versus China. It is actually it's called as Sevanom Arivu, and it talks about the days of Buddha when he gave some solutions to pandemic, and how that Chinese agent comes to India to spread that virus, how he hypnotizes, how he spreads that virus from dog and then to the human beings, and how the hero Buddha he tries to save this world. The other characters, how they work on that, and how they find out the antidote. And the common thread between Krish and Chennai versus China, that they derive the antidote from the blood of hero, superhero, who has some qualities of superhero. In actuality, we failed to do so, but at least we can imagine how solution can be made up of. And as I have mentioned earlier, that these are the futuristic movie, and they tell about the future, what happens and what may happen. And at some extent, these movies have literally told about the future. They have depicted the future, and certain pattern can be recognized that how they came to reality. Coming to next section of this presentation, the literature, part of literature. And now when you read the literature related to pandemic or the lockdown literature across the world, there are certain features, characteristics that can be identified, like pathos is there, where the pathetic situations, human predicament is depicted in such literature. Then fear, we all are suspicious. We suffer from psychological issues, frustration, and many of people are committing suicide. And there's a, we cease to believe in human values, human culture. This is another, side effect of such pandemic on human psyche, and that is being reflected in literature. There, once again, brutal and ruthless conditions that have, paved critical problems in human society. Once again, we are here in literature, we are struggling with self and our surrounding. We are fighting our own inner demons. At the same time, we are fighting the outer demons also. Here, that small, tiny virus that can be seen with our naked eyes. Then 24/7, we have suspicious attitude. We look at everybody, even we suspect our own self. Then, as I have mentioned earlier, indifference on the level of government agencies, system. Then the majority part here is the issues of caste, gender, and race. We have witnessed in America and even how in India too, a particular religion was defamed for spreading virus. And some things are better not to say, but we all can understand how the situation has been exploited to defame and de-glorify others, or what we can say, demonize other community, other caste. And on the other hand, when it comes to gender, women have suffered on many grounds, especially who were working as ASHA workers. Women really who are working in our homes. They are busy all the time in the kitchens. At the same time, they have to look at the hygiene situations, psychological. They provide psychological support to the men, and the caste issues here. The problem is that all over the world there are the ghettos. That is reality. You can't wipe out that. So especially if you see the situations like prevalent situations like Dharavi, then like Malegaon, how particular people have suffered because of dense population, because of sanitation issues, because of lack of medical facilities over there, and because of negligence on their own part, because government is also trying their level best, but on their own part they have suffered. And there is another issue, that problems of faith in religion and civilization. It is heartbreaking when it came one of the religious leader who said that my heart is broken that God has not come to our help. And this is the leader who represents a particular party, religious party. So here there is a question mark on the existence of God. So when it reminds me when Nietzsche says that God is dead, or the whole discourse on existentialism, human or God. And Cortesa has talked a lot about Albert Camus, and how Albert Camus has talked about this human predicament. I remember in one of his novel, Outsider, how a man who travels from a long journey and who is unable to cry over the death of his mother, and he is thought to be culprit, and he is present for that. So this talks about so many human predicaments, and lockdown literature definitely would go for this. And another aspect of this is economic or capitalist approach to this. How migrants, the people who have been working on daily wages, who have been working on contractual basis, and all of a sudden they were jobless. Even government jobs are in threats. So hunger is the biggest issue that we'll face in coming days. So the people who are working on permanent jobs, they're also facing the threat. They are also in limbo situation, whether they will be in job, whether their salaries would be continued or not. So these issues will be there in upcoming literature that would deal with the lockdown. There are many fiction. I have taken this list from one of the library website. So many novels are there. You can get it on internet also, and might be these have been turned into the films during those times also. Certain non-fiction are also there. These are from western part of the hemisphere, and in India also we have literature that has talked about lockdown. If you see, people are expressing on Facebook walls, they're sharing their views, and it is also expressed that it would be better to die of corona infection rather dying of hunger. People are dying out of hunger, being quarantined in the home. So they say that it is war against existence. So let face it now. Let face it without any fear. So let's work against this, And these people are expressing this undying optimism, the sheer survival on the values of human optimism, human courage that would bring all of us out of this situation. What is I would like to share here one poem, and it is much in talk on net and media also. How Gulzar has talked about the migrants issue. The most what we can say, the people who suffered lot are the migrants. And if you see, they died of hunger, they died of suffocation. They were traveling in tempos of cabins and unhygienic conditions, and even while traveling they didn't get food. This is what Gulzar has talked, and it is translated in English by Rakshanda Zalil. The pandemic raged. No, poetry is all about they will go to die there where there is life. So the people who are traveling, the pandemic raged. The workers and laborers fled to their homes. All the machines ground to a halt in the cities. Only their hands and feet moved. The lives they had planted back in the villages. The sowing and the harvesting was all back there of the jowar, wheat, corn, bajra, all of it. Those divisions with the cousins and brothers, those fights at the canals and waterways, the strong men hired sometimes from their side and sometimes from this. The lawsuits dating back to grandparents and granduncles, engagements, marriages, fields, drought, flood, the fear. Will the skies rain? No, they will go to die there where there is life. Here they have only brought their bodies and plugged them in. They pulled out the plugs. Come, let's go home. And they set off. They will go to die there where there is life. And this is, we all have shared very nice, uh, what we can say, photographs, sayings, messages related to the our native places. That villages have capacity to survive all of us, where cities have, disown us. Villages are ready to accept us in with all our problems. And now, what we need in such critical situations, what we need is hope, undying hope. We need to be together. We need to build human chain that can help all of us to survive. We need understanding and caring. We may be apart, we may have social distancing, but we need to care each other. Our hearts should be together. They should, breathe the same air with same care. Then love, that is unconditional love, should be there. We should care those who don't have anything or who need us. Then we need common efforts together with governmental agencies. And we need to be responsible now as a responsible government and responsible citizens. I think this would be enough. There's a lot to say, lot to discuss, but I think time constraints are there. And I am very thankful to Dr. Bandal sir, Dr. Arun Kharat, Shikram madam, and all my colleagues over there. I am really happy to be the part of this webinar. Thank you, Bajrang Kode sir, being part of this. Thank you, Rohit, for your wonderful sharing. Thank you all the participants for listening me carefully. Thanks. Thank you very much. Over to you,
Thank,
Bandal.
thank you very much. At the outset of this international webinar, may I request to my colleague Dr. Arun Jadhav sir to express sincere vote of thanks. Dr. Arun Jadhav sir, please. Dr. Jadhav sir, please. Hello. 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 Hello, Dr. Jadhav, sir. Hello, Dr. Jadhav, sir.
Nothing now.
Hello, Jadhav, sir. Jadhav, sir, please. Jadhav, sir. Hello, Jadhav, sir. May I request to Jadhav, sir? May I would like to express sincere thanks to Dr. Bajrang Korde, sir, former head of the Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune. The another resource person from Kathmandu University, Dr. Ek Prasad Duvedi, and my friend and colleague, Dr. Rohidas Nitonde from Shivaji College, Parbhani, and my best friend, Dr. Ajay Deshmukh, Sri Muktananda College, Gangapur. I sincerely express a vote of thanks to all of these resource persons and dear participants from India and abroad. Thank you very much. With this, I would like to conclude the meeting. The session is over. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.